scientists. Billy says, and still this. You make me embarrassed. Quetzal says, that doesn't lie in my sense. Billy says, concerning Mars, I have another question. Even though the entire planet is practically a wild, dry landscape, there is, nevertheless, a rather thick and large layer of ice on the South Pole, which could be compared to the layers of ice of our Arctic and Antarctic. Of course, the conditions aren't right for this. Nevertheless, this South Pole layer of ice is present, as I could see during the flight around Mars when, on the one hand, Semyaza first took me there in her beam ship, as we flew to the great spacer of her father Patar, and also after that, as Patar circled around Mars again on the return flight to Earth, in order to show me even other things, as this was also the case with all other solar planets and several of their moons, which I wanted to see. Then, the journey still took us to the nearer and further surroundings of the Sun, where I saw several other remarkable things, as well as on the North Pole of the Earth, which are still unknown to our earthly scientists of astronomy and which are likely to give them some surprise and attract attention even with the earthly population, when one or another is discovered. For example, among other things, I'm referring to the fact that far behind the Sun, there orbits even another planet, but this remains hidden from the Earth, always located behind the star, for it is a solar orbit with such a speed that it can never become visible from the Earth, and moreover, it already drifts out of the Solar System and, thus, slowly removes itself from the system. Moreover, Patar showed me that there is also a sun ring system, as this is also the case for several of the planets in a different form. At the same time, I also saw that in this ring system, as it was called by Patar, a certain number of satellites also romped around, but everything wasn't comparable to Saturn's ring system, whose actual moons didn't circulate in the ring system itself, as this is the case for the satellites of the Sun's ring system. Now the question, am I now allowed to talk about this, contrary to what Patar told me in 1975, that I must maintain silence over these things? I was also allowed to release information about other things, at least for the group members. But how is it now today? Since then, 12 years have lapsed in the country, during which time a lot has changed, and my contacts have also become well known around the world. Therefore, probably no one would be surprised anymore if I would now release some information relating to the aforementioned. Even if I am designated as a spinner again, it won't cause harm anymore. I think that I no longer get so upset or angry, and I certainly also know how to prevent this. I've already been branded as a spinner and fantasist, and my enemies can't even do more than practice stupid talk and dumb criticism and slander me, etc., who still won't be able to remain silent even now, for certain people think nothing of rational thinking or of propriety and tolerance. Some of the very friendly fellows are simply inconvincible because they are megalomaniacal and arrogant. Quetzal says what you say is correct. However, a danger will continue to exist, namely that those certain elements will seek and continue to seek after your life if you talk about the aforementioned facts officially, which these people won't like. Thus, you must exercise extreme caution in every respect. Billy says that will be the least of my concerns. I can take care of myself quite well, and if it's necessary, I can also defend myself. I'm actually not as defenseless as some people think I am. In so many respects, I have my defense capabilities, as you should actually know. Quetzal says that is well known to me, but maybe you too carefully. But if you promise that you will exercise sufficient caution and attention in reference to the protection of your life, then I may certainly give you permission to release some more information, at least within the framework that you've mentioned. And what I still want to say, one could also say to your comment about the ring system of the Sun that it is a veil ring, or more precisely, a veil ring system, which consists of fine and very fine particles and also small and large chunks of various sizes, or even satellites, as you call them. Billy says thanks. There is still so much that could be told of my great journey, but I think that everything would ultimately become too much. Quetzal says you certainly aren't wrong about that, because everything really would be too much if you wanted to tell or write down all of your observations and experiences of your 5-day-long journey. Billy says that's exactly what I mean. Quetzal says then we are, indeed, of the same opinion. Billy says so I said. Quetzal says so, what does your next question relate to? As well as I know you, you are not yet at the end of all that you want to know. Billy says what seasons exist on Error? Quetzal says the same as the ones on your home planet, the Earth. Billy says so spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Quetzal says that is correct. Billy says and the duration of the individual seasons, these also approximately coincide with ours. Quetzal says that, too, is correct. Nevertheless, semi-hours are as well as Pattaya, and I already explained to you before that our home world is very Earth-like and, thus, comparable with the Earth as far as possible. Billy says I know, I just wanted to reassure myself again because someone asked me about it. Quetzal says oh, I understand. Actually, I should have remembered, since you often do this because you don't want to transmit any false information. That is, indeed, well known to me. Billy says thanks for your understanding. Quetzal says the thanks are mine, for I am honored that you ask me, by what means you don't transmit any false information. Billy says and for my part, I am honored that you answer my questions, which isn't to be regarded simply as a matter of course. Quetzal says officially, it is unfortunately not permitted not just with regard to my person but for all of us to answer some of your questions. Only when the answers and explanations regarding sensitive issues are determined for you alone can I deal with them and give you exhaustive information. Billy says of course. I also don't want to push you into something and thereby lead you into the devil's kitchen. But what you can officially answer for me is certainly the question that you recently meant with it, when you said that the future of antibiotics looks gloomy. Quetzal says that is correct. I can respond to that openly. My allusion referred to the fact that the earthly physicians will be forced to investigate new medicines in terms of antibiotics. This will find its reasons in the fact that more and more the Earth people will senselessly take antibiotics, and to be sure, ones that are irresponsibly prescribed by the doctors for even the most minor of illnesses. But on the other hand, people will also be tormented more and more by antibiotic injections in all sorts of meats and other food products, causing a wide variety of bacterial strains to become resistant against antibiotics. But this will mean that the possibilities for treating diseases and infections of various types will become more and more problematic, and in the end, no effective medicines will be available anymore. This will happen, on the one hand, through the irresponsibility of many doctors and, on the other hand, through the fault of those who, due to their greed for profit, allow foods of all kinds to be filled with antibiotics, as this has already been the case for quite some time in all industrialized countries, in which animals are bred for slaughter and foods of all kinds are produced in order to be placed on the consumer market and sold to the consumers. These, then, are the ones who become impaired in their immune systems by the antibiotic-impregnated food and who become infected with bacterial strains, against which there are no longer possibilities for defense. In particular, multi-resistant germs or bacteria will emerge more and more in hospitals, against which there will be almost no possibilities for defense anymore, or else none at all. Particularly in this regard, the bacterium Staphylococcus aureus will excel in an extremely dangerous form as an especially multi-resistant hospital germ, which is designated by the short name of MSA. This extremely dangerous germ mainly settles itself in the nasal mucous membrane, as well as on the bare skin, and it is extremely contagious and, thus, very easily transferable and capturable. The bacterium first becomes really dangerous, however, when it arrives into the body in some way, such as via external or internal wounds, but there are still other possibilities, such as through infusions, etc. But this will still remain hidden to the physicians for a long time. As I said, Too many antibiotics are